Today we're going to talk about the Defender for Servers, which is the probably one of the most popular and one of the most sometimes misunderstood Defender for Cloud plans or bundles. And our agenda for today is so we're going to talk about what Defender for Servers is, so why it exists. We're going to talk about these different Defender for Server plans available for you to choose from. We're also going to talk about the features that are included in this bundle. Then we're going to share some lessons learned, from our engagements with large customers. Going to talk about the different agents available and needed or not needed by Defender for Servers for different purposes. And we're also going to share some deployment considerations when it comes to actually rolling out this plan. And so we'll try to show you as many demos as possible. So because we understand it's sometimes it's better to see something, how it looks like, how it works, than just read some docs. And with that, so the cloud brings a lot of benefits for us, right? We'll understand that, but also when it comes to creating servers, using servers, deploying servers, and so on and so forth. But it also brings us some challenges because one thing is when you have a server which is sitting in your server room and you have like a physical security, so only a few people can access that, and you can have the physical access to the server only, for example. When it comes to using the cloud-based or virtual servers, so we need to kind of, in addition to having some traditional protection like a physical security and so on and so forth, so that there are some cloud specific considerations they need to take, and it primarily comes to manageability of the servers or securing the control plane, for example, right? Who can access, what ports are open, right? So who can access those ports, and so on and so forth. And so that's kind of challenges Defender for Servers can help you with. So when it comes to Defender for Servers, so we have, first of all, multi-cloud support. So it's not just for protecting Azure virtual machines. So we can protect your servers technically, anywhere. So whether it's cloud-based VMs, Azure EC2 instances in Amazon Cloud or Google VMs, but also we can protect your physical servers actually running in your data center. And so they can take advantage of those cloud-based detections and protection capabilities that Defender for Server provide to secure those servers as well. Another big part of the Defender for Server is our EDR solution, which is Defender for Endpoint, which provides many security capabilities, and we're going to talk about this in greater details in a second. And of course, since we're talking about cloud-based VMs, there are some cloud challenges, and also we can use the power of the cloud to actually help you secure those servers. And we're going to also talk about this cloud-specific capabilities also included in Defender for Server. So what is the big benefits of the Defender for Servers? So first of all, in Defender for Cloud, so we provide you like a central visibility into your virtual machine, your server estate, whether virtual machines or if you use the Azure Arc to connect your, for example, on-premise servers, you can see those machines in the same view as well. Onboarding experience can be very easy because as long as the virtual machine is deployed, so Defender for Cloud can detect that and start protecting that this machine. So, or if you connect your on-prem service with Azure Arc, so the situation is going to be the same. So as soon as it's available in Azure, Defender for Cloud will start monitoring and protecting that server. And with the use of auto provisioning capabilities provided by Defender for Cloud, you can automatically deploy required agents vulnerability assessment solutions, like automatically onboard your servers to Defender for Endpoint to get anti-malware and EDR capabilities, and so on and so forth. And of course, you can easily detect servers that are maybe not secured and take some actions to fix that. And if we look at this picture here, so it's a kind of simplified representation of the traditional kind of attack kill chain and how Defender for Server can help you protect or secure your servers across those kill chain stages. For example, the Defender for Endpoint, which is included in Defender for Server, can detect and prevent some malware activities. Just-in-time access capability can actually prevent access to the management port or limit the access to those management ports. For example, adaptive application control that I'm going to talk about in more details later on can actually monitor applications running on your servers and alert you when some unsanctioned applications are getting executed. All right, now let's talk actually about different Defender for Server plans that are available today for you to kind of choose from. So we have two, so which is currently called the Plan 1 and Plan 2. So, and as you can see here, we got a list of all these features and capabilities included in both plans. But I just want to kind of quickly emphasize the difference. So the Defender for Server plan, which is a way cheaper option, primarily offers you Defender for integration with Defender for Endpoint. And basically, with this, if you decided to enable this plan, you will get, first of all, some just the CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management capabilities, how to improve the security of your servers. And also, you'll get anti-malware capabilities and EDR capabilities provided by Defender for Endpoint. But if you want to use some other features, like things like I mentioned before, like adaptive application control, or file integrity monitoring, or even that just-in-time access for the management ports. So in this case, you need to have Plan 2 enabled. And the price difference is, for some customers, might be a decision making challenge. So now let's actually talk about those features that are included in more details. So one of the things that are actually provided by Defender for Endpoint is the attack surface reduction. So attack surface reduction allows you to create rules that will control the behavior of different applications running on your servers and operating system itself. So basically, attack surface reduction rules can, let's say, control which processes can be executed or created on the machines, or how one application can interact with the network, for example, or with the other applications. These attack surface reductions can be executed in two different, actually 3 different modes. So one is the audit mode, so we can just see what is happening, like in what if kind of scenario. So to see, to potentially just understand what's happening and without affecting the server itself. So and when you're ready, so you can change those rules and enforce those rules to kind of prevent certain behaviors from happening. Another feature that is actually provided by Defender for Endpoint is the next generation antivirus and anti-malware protection. So here we use different machine learning, AI techniques to understand whether any process or any executable or any file is, good or bad. And the cloud-based protection, which is also kind of configurable option. So basically, customers can customize so which features they can use or they want to use or don't want to use. But so cloud-based protection provides some, like almost near real-time detection of absolutely new and previously unknown malware. So, and we provide this protection for all customers, or for all our customers, where they're using this protection. For example, if Defender for Endpoint sees the totally new file and this file gets uploaded to the cloud, where it gets analyzed using different heuristics and behavioral-based analytics. And when we make a decision that this file is bad or malicious, this file can be blocked. Not just for the customer that actually just seen this file and uploaded this file, but also for some other customers using these Defender for Endpoint capabilities. And obviously, we provide this protection for both clients or endpoints, workstations, as well as servers in our case. The next feature, which is also part of the Defender for Endpoint, is the endpoint detection and response. So this is a capability that allows, first of all, automated correlation of the different alerts to kind of show you the security analyst like a broader picture of what's happening. And so those analytics and machine learning techniques that we have in Defender for Endpoint allows us to detect those signals and potentially see like a broader incident. And also the amount of data that we collect, and not just the amount of data, I would say like it's more like the value of the data that we collect allows the security analyst to do like more advanced hunting, search for the things that potentially like very sophisticated attacks that the built-in analytics were not able to find, or just for some other reasons. So the Defender for Endpoint stores 6 months of data so that the customers can search against and potentially find some very tricky attacks. And of course, this EDR capability provided by Defender for Endpoint also offers some manual and automated response capabilities. For example, so a compromised machine can be automatically isolated, or Defender for Endpoint, when it sees something bad is happening, can execute like a trigger, like a deep scan, or collect some investigation information and send it to a security team, and so on and so forth. So another feature that is part of the Defender for Server bundle is the vulnerability assessment. So we currently have 2 options. I would say like 2 major options and some other options. So there are currently 2 providers available in Defender for Cloud and in Defender for Server bundle in this case. So one is our partner Qualys, and also we have our own Microsoft vulnerability management. So the customer is absolutely free to choose whatever solution works better for them. We provide the same the vulnerability assessment for both Linux and Windows, and so and present this information in Defender for Cloud for security analysts to review. Another thing that actually I wanted to highlight here, something that we released just a couple of weeks ago at Ignite, and this is the agentless scanning. So agentless scanning is is also powered by actually Microsoft vulnerability management solution, but it uses slightly different approach than Qualys or MD TVM, which is the other option. So, and it's totally agentless, meaning that there is no agent needs to be deployed. So basically, it's zero impact on the virtual machine. Basically, it's a zero-touch vulnerability assessment. And the way it works, the way we do that by taking disk snapshots of the protected virtual machine, and then analyzing this snapshot itself for collecting inventory information about the applications installed and their versions, and sending this information to the vulnerability management backend for analysis, and then we'll present this the assessment result information in Defender for Cloud portal. And yeah, just probably worth saying here that so it's this operation, and this because we heard these questions a lot, so just wanted to kind of mention that. So this process is absolutely secure. So we store the snapshots in the same region as the virtual machine itself, and so it's stored in this specifically created like environment for every customer. There is no like a shared environment, so that this disk snapshot is stored totally securely. And as soon as we complete the vulnerability assessment scanning, we destroy this disk snapshot. I mean, I would say it's a very safe process from security perspective. Now, there are two actually very cloud native security capabilities that Defender for Servers offer. One is the adaptive network hardening. So this feature actually it requires some time, like actually 30 days of learning, and it analyzes the open ports usage. So basically, we collect some traffic going to and from the ports we have open. Analyze the existing NSGs, right, network security groups, and if we see some potentially unused ports, for example, if you have SSH or RDP open, but no one uses that, so this adaptive application network hardening will give you a recommendation saying like, look, so there is port no one uses, so why do you need to keep it open? And you can just take action and either close this port altogether or limit that to very specific, for example, IP address where we Defender for Servers actually sees communication from. Another thing is which is cloud native, and this actually one that we currently provide for both Azure VMs and Amazon EC2 instances, and this is just-in-time VM access, basically. This feature allows you to create rules that control when these management ports can be open and for how long, and which networks those ports can be accessed without keeping those ports open run the clock, which is kind of a security risk, because there is millions of automated tools on the internet that are constantly scanning all the IP addresses for any open ports and do some brute force or rainbow table attacks and so on and so forth. Dictionary attacks, actually, not rainbow, dictionary attacks. So, and yeah, that's the just-in-time VM access. Another thing which is quite interesting. So adaptive application control. This allows you to create like an application allow list and get warned when something which is outside that list get executed. For instance, you can say, here's the list of these applications I approve to be run on that server. And so if for some reason any new application get executed, it could be malicious or I don't know, or someone else, for example, one of the administrators for example, access your servers and install some application for some reason, which can be also a security risk, right? Because that could be like outdated software, and you don't want to, have some potentially vulnerable software running on that machine. You can get warned, you can alerted on this activity. So we do not currently provide enforcement capability. So basically, if you're familiar with Windows App Locker, that's something you can do in Windows with App Locker. Currently, Adaptive Application Control does not offer the enforcement capability. If you think that this is something you would really want to see as part of this feature, please, share your comment in the chat window. So, and we have the engineering team representative, so they would love to hear your feedback here. Yeah, another feature that I wanted kind of to talk about is file integrity monitoring. So this is sometimes it could be helpful. So it helps you maintain and monitor the integrity of the potential, some system critical files, registry keys, or some. You can also say I have some files, whatever it might be, text file or some executable, which is very important to you. And so we can, and Defender for Server can start monitoring that file for any potential changes to that file. And warn you when we detect some changes. So we do that based on the hash of the file, but also if it's a configurable option, you can actually we can detect, and you can see actually the content changes. If it's for example, if it's a configuration file, by default, file integrity monitoring can detect the file change itself and say, look, we detected some file change. But if you wanted to see what exactly got changed, you can do that as well. But it requires some additional configuration and some additional storage. So where we're gonna store that file. But there are some considerations need to be made here. Now, so let's now actually see what this all looks like. Just give me a second. Right. First thing I wanted to show you is the integration between Defender for Cloud and Defender for Endpoint. So first of all, Defender for Cloud, or Defender for Servers for that matter, so because this is the Defender for Cloud bundle that actually provide this capability. So and one of the features provided by Defender for Servers is the integration with Defender for Endpoint. So and this integration allows you to automatically onboard your servers to Defender for Endpoint, but also we can show you the alerts generated by Defender for Endpoint in the Defender for Cloud security dashboard. And I get an example here. So as you can see here, I tried to execute some ransomware, some malware on one of my servers, and I got this alert in Defender for Cloud security alert dashboard saying, look, you have some malware. But if I go to the details page, I see that this alert, see this link here, so it tells me that this alert was generated actually by Defender for Endpoint, and we can absolutely see some information over here. So what was the that malware? But if I want to do some more in-depth analysis, or see if there is any other machines that are potentially got affected by this malware, I can go to the Defender for Endpoint dashboard, which is part of the Microsoft 365 security portal, and do some deeper analysis there. So as you can see here, so we can get way more details on the malware itself, and how this file got in this system, what maybe some other processes this file triggered, and so on and so forth. So that's the integration with MDE. Another thing, the next thing actually, so I wanted to show is the vulnerability assessment. Like I mentioned, so you can choose between Qualys and Microsoft vulnerability assessment, and you can actually have both in the same even subscription. So it's whatever works for you better. So you can see it's in my environment. I have one machine per where I have Qualys doing the vulnerability assessment, and I have another machine with Microsoft Defender vulnerability management. When it comes to seeing and analyzing those vulnerabilities, so Defender for Cloud provides some recommendation that tells you, look, so you have machine that are not really currently assessed by any vulnerability management solution, and you can just go ahead and enable it. So by just choosing the machine name and click and fix, and you will be able to, actually I don't have the permissions in this tenant, but if I go to another one, like this one, for example, you can just say, yeah, click fix, and decide which vulnerability assessment solution you want to deploy. So we have two integrated options, like I already previously mentioned, Qualys and Microsoft vulnerability management, but you can also use some bring your own license scenarios and connect some third-party scanners. And so when you get the results, Defender for Cloud will show you these recommendations, saying, yeah, look, you have some vulnerabilities detected. You basically need to go and do something about that, right? But potentially deploy some patches, hot fixes, and so on. Okay. When it comes to working with the vulnerability assessment results, so we have one of the built-in workbooks that you can actually find helpful, and it provides you the kind of high-level visibility of the overall vulnerabilities situation in your environment across the virtual machines, containers, and SQL. Very easy to actually work with. Can be used as a reporting capability, so you can see these, the vulnerabilities by severity and so on and so forth, and you can drill down by, just picking whatever virtual machine you're interested in and see what exactly vulnerabilities were detected, and obviously do some additional analysis and take action after that. All right. So so most of the Defender for Server features actually can be found here in the workload protection dashboard. And let's actually talk about just-in-time access, for example. So first of all, so before you can use this, you need to configure that. So basically, you need to pick the machines you want Defender for Server to start providing just-in-time access for. You need to configure it first, right? So we made it very easy. So basically, we just show you which machines are currently have or doesn't have a VM configured, and you can just enable it with one click. So just pick machines where you want to enable just in time, click enable, and just provide some information. How do you want to, which port you want just in time to control, whether it's just SSH if it's a Linux box, or RDP or PowerShell if it's a Windows machine, and you can configure which source IP addresses should be able to request access. And when you get this configured, you'll be able to actually, when someone needs access to those ports or to those machines, they can request access. And when they request this access, they can say, yes, I want to access RDP port to this, the server, and I want this to only be available or open just for my IP address. And you can control the duration, how long this port should be open, 1 hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours. And when you click open port, the Defender for Server will create a allow NSG rule that will allow access to this port for this IP address, and just for 1 or X hours, let's say. So yeah, that's the Defender just-in-time access. So another actually related to this, as I previously mentioned, is adaptive application network hardening. So like I said, this feature monitors the usage of those management ports and provides some recommendation for further hardening of those ports. Like, for example, in this case, I have the RDP port open, and this the Defender for Server recommends actually blocking this port or deny a rule to prevent access to this port, because this port hasn't been used for more than 30 days. Meaning that's why do you need to keep it open if no one uses that, right? That's it's probably a good reason for closing this port down. And so with that, since we're a little bit behind, so I'm going to pass it over to Tom to talk about some lessons learned from our engagement with our customers and share some other deployment considerations. Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Stan. And I've been monitoring the chat, and I've seen that there are lots of questions that are basically popping in here. I hope that we can answer most of them in the upcoming couple of slides. But yeah, let me just give it a try. So what I'm going to present now is some things to know within the scope of Microsoft Defender for Servers. And the first thing that is very important to understand is that Defender for Servers Plan 1 that you mentioned before needs to be enabled on the subscription level. With that being said, there's another plan, which is Defender for Servers Plan 2, that needs to be enabled on the subscription and on the workspace level. And this is very important to understand because there are some dependencies on log analytics that might require you to enable it on the workspace as well. And I'm just hearing some background noise. Can everybody please mute themselves? Thank you. So with that being said, there was one question: what happens if I have Defender for Servers Plan 1 enabled on the subscription, but then connect that server to a workspace that has Defender for Servers enabled, which is Defender for Servers Plan 2 on the workspace level? That will mean that from the subscription perspective, you will have access to basically only the MDE integration, which is the value proposition of Defender for Servers Plan 1. But since that machine is connected to the workspace, you will be paying for Defender for Servers Plan 2, and you will get access to the agent-based scenarios in Plan 2 that I will cover in a bit. So that means that in that situation, with the log analytics agent, you will be paying for Defender for Servers Plan 2, but you will not get all the benefits of Defender for Servers Plan 2 in that situation. So it's very important to make an educated decision if or if not you want to enable Defender for Servers Plan 1 or Plan 2. Then today there are no methods to enable these plans on a subset of servers. So you cannot mix and merge Defender for Servers Plan 1 and Plan 2 on the same subscription. You need to make that decision upfront, and you need to divert your servers into several subscriptions, one for Defender for Servers Plan 1 and one for Defender for Servers Plan 2, if you want to not only have access to all the capabilities that you mentioned before in the demo stand. Now, This is something I mentioned before. Any machine that is connected to a log analytics workspace via the log analytics agent, which has Defender for Servers Plan 2 enabled, will incur a charge. That means that if there is a central security workspace that you have, and you might be connecting your, I don't know, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10 devices to that workspace using the log analytics agent, you will be paying for Defender for Servers Plan 2 for these machines. So there again, it is very important to understand if or if not you want to connect a machine to a particular workspace with having that solution enabled on top of it. And then there's one dependency that we have today, which is the requirement of having Azure Arc. Azure Arc is the vehicle that we are using to deploy extensions and agents to machines. So if there is a non-Azure machine that should be connected to Defender for Servers, you need to have Azure Arc, because that way we are then able to deploy the various extensions, such as the Microsoft Defender for Endpoint extension, but also Azure Monitoring Agent, the Azure Monitor Agent, the AMA. That is something that requires Azure Arc. So there's no way around Azure Arc for AMA. There's no way around Azure Arc for Defender for Endpoint if you want to have it deployed via Microsoft Defender for Servers. Now I've been mentioning agents, and what I want to do is I want to demystify these agents. First of all, there are some agent dependencies within the whole scope of Defender for Cloud, and I'm now just focusing on servers, but also with the foundational cloud security posture management, the CSPM capability, the free capability that comes with Defender for Cloud. There are some dependencies on either the log analytics or the Azure Monitor Agent, because there are some recommendations, security recommendations that leverage the agent to get insights into the operating system, so we are able to deploy to surface the current situation. And for that, there is one security recommendation that is called Log Analytics Agent should be installed on virtual machines. And if you take a look at the related recommendations, then you'll see the list of all the other recommendations that require the Log Analytics Agent to be deployed. Now, if we, on top of that, enable Defender for Servers Plan 1, then you also get the foundational cloud security posture management for on-prem machines, leveraging Azure Arc. So then we are able to see that machine as an asset, as a resource that's connected. And then we are able to provide you with corresponding insights. And then on top of that, and this is the main value proposition of Defender for Servers Plan 1, you will have the unified visibility of all your servers, if that is an Azure VM or non-Azure machine. No matter if that's AWS, GCP, on-prem, whatever server you have, as long as it's connected via Azure Arc, it can be represented. And on top of that, you will get the integration with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. In Plan 1, in Defender for Servers Plan 1, there is no additional feature dependency on the log analytics or the Azure Monitor Agent. With that being said, you can enable Defender for Servers Plan 1 on your subscription. You can cover all your Azure VMs and all your Azure Arc machines. And without any other agent like the Log Analytics Agent, you will still get all the benefits besides that particular security recommendation that comes with the foundational CSPM. So if you want to have that one, then again, you would have to have the agent. But it's Defender for Servers Plan 1 does not require you to do it. So if you just want to have Plan 1 for the sake of having Defender for Endpoint deployed to your servers, there's no dependency on the Log Analytics Agent. And then we have Plan 2, and this is the plan that requires either the Log Analytics or the Azure Monitor Agent to be deployed, because there are some monitoring agent-based scenarios that are only available if you have that agent. And without having that agent, you don't get all the benefits that Defender for Servers Plan 2 offers. And what that means is shown in the matrices that are coming in the next couple of slides. So what I just mentioned is that we have three different scenarios. We have the Defender for Cloud foundational CSPM part, which is the free tier of Defender for Cloud. Then we have Defender for Servers Plan 1, and we have Defender for Servers Plan 2. Defender for Servers Plan 2 is the plan that requires most of the agents. We need Azure Arc for your non-Azure machines. We need the Log Analytics Agent, and you probably will want to use Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So there's another agent that could be deployed if it's not a Windows Server 2019 or newer Windows operating system, because in these machines, Defender for Endpoint is already integrated in the operating system itself. There's a slightly a little difference when we transition from the log analytics to the Azure Monitor Agent. Because with Azure Monitor Agent, there comes another dependency, which is the guest config extension. And there again, this is only for Defender for Servers CSPM. Defender for Cloud CSPM. So again, in Defender for Servers Plan 1, there's no dependency to the monitoring agent. In Defender for Servers Plan 2, there is a dependency. And we will learn about the agent-based scenarios in a couple of minutes. But it's important to understand that with the introduction of the Azure Monitor Agent, some of the capabilities that rely on the log analytics or relied on the log analytics agent are no longer part of that agent. The guest config extension is part of Azure Policy. And what it does is it provides the Azure platform with the capability to see the configuration of an operating system. And for the OS security baseline recommendation that we have as part of Microsoft Defender for Cloud, the guest config extension is what we are using instead of relying on the Azure Monitor Agent or the log analytics agent in older environments. Now, if we take a look at the agent-based scenarios, then there again is quite a big list of scenarios. And I want to divert it into different aspects. First of all, we have the OS baseline recommendation. OS baseline recommendation is what I mentioned before. That's a recommendation that checks for the operating system configuration, and that can either be done by using the log analytics agent, or if you're not using that agent, there's a public preview recommendation that leverages the guest config extension. There's another recommendation for the endpoint protection, and this is basically for an EPP or an anti-malware solution. So we are checking if on your operating system you have installed one of the supported anti-malware solutions, and maybe someone from the chat team, maybe that they can just share the link to that particular information, because there's a list of endpoint protection solutions that we are supporting, which obviously will include the Microsoft Defender anti-malware, but also other third-party solutions that we can check for. And yeah, that is done based on the log analytics agent, or if you want to, then you can use the Azure Monitor Agent for that. Now we're coming to the Defender for Servers Plan 2 capabilities. File integrity monitoring, adaptive application controls, and OS level and fileless attack detections outside of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint require that agent to be deployed. So there again, in Plan 1, there is no file integrity monitoring. There is no adaptive application controls. And there's also no attack detections outside of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. So in Plan 1, there is no need for having a monitor agent. But in Plan 2, you need to have that agent, and obviously the solution enabled on the workspace. So you are able to get the file integrity monitoring, the adaptive application controls, and the OS level and fileless attack detections. Then there is the anti-malware and EDR component. That is what Defender for Endpoint will provide. So we are not reinventing the wheel and deploying an own solution in Defender for Servers. We are using what we have in-house at Microsoft, which is Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And that again is an additional agent if it's not built into the operating system already. And then we have integrated vulnerability assessment solutions. One of those solutions is the Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management. That comes as part of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint, so there's no additional agent that needs to be deployed. Then we have agentless scanning, something that Stan mentioned earlier in this webinar. So with agentless scanning, you don't need to deploy any agent, but under the hood, we are leveraging Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management to scan for vulnerabilities on your machines. And you can leverage the Qualys VA extension, and that again would be another agent that is deployed to your machines. Now, I mentioned Azure Arc. Azure Arc is mandatory because there is no native agent that can be deployed to the operating system when it comes to Azure Monitor Agent, when it comes to the Qualys VA extension, and also when it comes to Microsoft Defender for Endpoint within the scope of Defender for Servers. You can still manually deploy it, and if you have the MDE for Server standalone license, you can still use it as long as it lasts. But if you want to have the integration with Microsoft Defender for Cloud, with a unified solution, a unified dashboard, you will have the vulnerability findings for all your servers in one place. You will see all security alerts for your whole infrastructure and platform services estate in one place. If you want to have that integration, then Azure Arc is mandatory, because then we are leveraging the MDE.Windows and MDE.Linux machine extension That is a management interface that allows us to deploy MDE in the operating system. I mentioned the Azure Monitor Agent, and the Azure Monitor Agent is an agent that will bring together several capabilities that before it was released have been part of different other agents. There is a dependency agent that we are using for Azure VMs in order to provide you with network level detections and network level information. For example, the network map and adaptive network hardening that relies on the dependency agent. Log Analytics Agent is something you're pretty aware of. That's the main benefit of basically Azure Monitor Agent is the successor of the Log Analytics Agent, but also there's a Telegraph Agent. That's not in scope of Defender for Servers and Defender for Cloud actually, because it's for metrics. We're not looking at metrics, we're just looking at security incidents and security alerts, and it's for Linux only, but that all is integrated in the Azure Monitor Agent. And now there are so-called data collection rules. With those data collection rules, or DCRs as they are called, you are able to define what the agent is actually supposed to detect or collect on your machine and where it's supposed to send it. So with data collection rules, you can have one agent and you can define a set of different workspaces. For example, you can select metrics to be metrics to be sent to your metrics workspace, security information to be sent to your security workspace, and maybe some other information sent to a third workspace just for the sake of having the data stored in a Log Analytics workspace. But still, there are some other dependencies. So Azure Policy will still be part of the equation. So we need the guest configuration in order to be able to look into the OS and to see about the OS baseline configuration. Azure Arc is mandatory also for AMA. Without Azure Arc, you're not able to deploy AMA to a non-Azure machine. And as I said before, Defender for Endpoint also requires Azure Arc. And all of them together, so Defender for Endpoint, Azure Arc, Guest Config Agent, and Azure Monitoring Agent, they will provide you with the whole suite of capabilities that we are providing in Defender for Servers Plan 2. For Plan 1, again, no need to have the Azure Monitor Agent or the Log Analytics Agent deployed. For Plan 2, you should have it. Now, there are some myths regarding the Azure Monitor Agent that I want to make sure everybody understands. First of all, the Azure Monitor Agent is GA. The agent itself is not preview. The integration with Defender for Cloud is. So that means that if you are using the Azure Monitor Agent, you can use it for adaptive application controls. You can use it for file integrity monitoring. That integration is what is public preview. It's not the agent itself, so you can use it in your environment. I'm working with customers that are using both Log Analytics Agent and the Azure Monitor Agent, and they are now transitioning towards the Azure Monitor Agent because it's, as you know, the Log Analytics Agent will be deprecated in about 18 months. So that is something you should just be aware of, and you should be planning for the transition from Log Analytics to Azure Monitor Agent. What features in Defender for Cloud does Azure Monitor Agent support? Well, I mentioned that before, but it is file integrity monitoring, adaptive application controls, and also the OS level threat detection when you're using it in Defender for Servers Plan 2 outside of Defender for Endpoint. So it's basically the same set of capabilities that we had in the Log Analytics Agent. When it comes to some of the recommendations, I mentioned before that the guest config extension or the guest config agent is what you would like to use, because that's not covered by the Azure Monitor Agent. But other than that, it's what I just mentioned. How does AMA work with on-prem machines? That is also a very common question we are getting. I mentioned that before, but for AMA to be able to be deployed to an on-prem machine, you want to have Azure Arc deployed. Within the scope of our multi-cloud deployments on AWS and on GCP, we are able to deploy Azure Arc automatically. So it's like an auto-provisioning capability. If you enable Defender for Servers on one of the multi-cloud connectors, we can automatically make sure that Azure Arc is deployed to your machines. And on top of that, we can then roll out Azure Monitor Agent, Defender for Endpoint, and so on. But for on-prem servers, you need to have the Azure Arc deployment before you can actually start to deploy the agents and extensions within the scope of Defender for Servers. There was another question in last week's webinar regarding log shipping from on-prem machines. I mentioned that we have DCRs, data collection rules. And once you have Azure Monitor Agent deployed to your on-prem machine, you can define what type of log format, what logs, what custom logs or system event logs or whatever you want to have, you want to ship to your log analytics workspace. So the answer is yes, it can ship logs from on-prem machines. You just need to define it in a data collection rule. Can I use both monitoring agents side by side? The answer is yes. I mentioned that before. I'm working with customers that already are using it. It's not the recommended approach because you will have two monitoring agents on the same machine, which will demand some performance, not much performance because they are very small, but still it might be a consideration that you don't want to have both of them on the same machine. But what customers, for example, did before August, before we had the public preview, I've been working with customers that had Azure Monitor Agent within the scope of Microsoft Sentinel and the Log Analytics Agent to be able to use the Defender for Servers Plan 2 capabilities. So that is totally supported. It's absolutely fine to do it. It's just not recommended because of what I mentioned before. And then there's one big topic that I also want to touch upon, and that is the Log Analytics data allowance that comes with Defender for Servers Plan 2. I oftentimes get that question, hey, Tom, I want to enable Defender for Servers Plan 2 because then all my logs in the Log Analytics workspace will get the 500 meg discount. Is that correct? And the answer is no. What we do is all machines that are built for Defender for Servers on a day will have the 500 megabyte allowance for the data types, and these data types basically represent tables in the Log Analytics workspace that are mentioned on this slide. So as you can see, there is no syslog. There is no audit D. With that, we don't give you the 500 meg discount for this type of logs. But Linux machines are still covered. That is also a common misunderstanding that we're hearing when customers say, I only get the 500 meg discount for Windows machines, but that's not correct. So what we do is, let me give you an example with 10 machines. You have 10 machines that are built for Microsoft Defender for Servers Plan 2. Then for each day, you will have 5,000 megabytes or 5 gigabytes of data ingestion that is allowed to be sent to the Log Analytics workspace into one of these tables, or into all of these tables, but it's 5,000 per day. With that being said, let's take two machines on the same day. Machine 1 is sending 100 megabyte, then machine 2 can send 900. Because then you have 1,000, which is 2 times 500 meg. You have two machines, so 2 times 500 meg are discounted or are granted as a data allowance. Same situation, but on 2 days. You have one machine that is ingesting 100 meg on day 1, everything is fine. The same machine is ingesting 900 meg on day 2, then you will have to pay the overage of 400 megabyte for day 2, because only 500 meg are included in that data allowance. What I'm saying is that we are averaging the 500 megabyte data discount or data allowance for all machines on that particular day. So if you have 10 machines, it's 5,000. If you have 100 machines, it's 50,000 and so on megabyte per day. It's not averaged across the month. So this is something you need to be very aware of. Because if on day 1 you're not reaching the overall allowance, that's fine. But if you on day 2 you're exceeding it, you will be charged for the overage. And then we want to cover the agent deployment considerations. In Defender for Cloud, we have the settings and monitoring plate that we recently removed. It was called auto provisioning plate. We just, well, not removed it, we moved it into the Defender plans setting, so you can find it on a different place now, but it's still there. And there are 4 different capabilities that are applicable for servers when it comes to protecting them. We have the Log Analytics Agent or Azure Monitor Agent, vulnerability assessment for machines, the guest config agent that I mentioned before, and the agentless scanning that also needs to be enabled. If you take a look at the Log Analytics or Azure Monitor Agent deployment, then you can select a default or custom workspace. On that custom workspace, you also want to make sure that Defender for Servers Plan 2 is enabled if you are using Plan 2. And then there is security event storage. That was a setting with the log analytics agent where you could define the security, the Windows Server security event log, to be stored in the log analytics workspace. There also is a misconception because Defender for Servers will not use the data that is stored in that workspace. It's just raw event logging for the sake of having the events there. For example, if you have a SIEM solution such as Microsoft Sentinel, then you can access these logs and bring them into context with a security alert. But Defender for Servers would not access the logs from the workspace. We would use the agent to access the logs directly on the machine and then process them in our backend. So even if, as in my screenshot, the security event storage is none, you will still get all the benefit of Defender for Servers Plan 2 in this particular case with all the threat detections. Now with the Azure Monitor Agent, you see that the security events config for Azure Monitor Agent is not available anymore in the Defender for Cloud portal because we are not using the data, so it doesn't make sense to have it in our portal. But you can still use a DCR, data collection rule, to define the set of security events you want to transition into your workspace. And then again, you will still have the 500 meg discount because security events is a table that is included there. Vulnerability assessment for machines. There are two integrated scanners that we can use, either the Microsoft Defender Vulnerability Management as part of Defender for Endpoint, or the integrated Qualys Vulnerability Assessment solution. For Qualys, we will deploy another agent. For Defender Vulnerability Management, we will not, because it is already part of Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Whenever you set a setting here and you save it, we will assign a policy to your Azure subscription. And based on your configuration, the policy assignment will have a parameter set to MDDM or to Qualys. But under the hood, it's an Azure policy-based deployment for this particular setting. And then we have the agentless scanning, which also is something that you can enable, or you should enable, in case you are using Defender CSPM or the Defender for Servers Plan 2 plan. And what you can do here, you can define an exclusion tag. In my case, I just named the tag scanning with a value off. And in case my machine has scanning off, it will not be scanned and touched by the agentless scanning capability. I mentioned auto provisioning on multi-cloud connectors a bit earlier. Just wanted to make sure that I'm showing that screenshot here. Because what we do here is you can enable agentless scanning. You can automatically deploy the Azure Arc agent and additional extensions, including vulnerability assessment, Defender for Endpoint, and so on. And with that being said, I'm at the end of my presentation. Thank you very, very much for coming here today. And yeah, I think then we can wrap it up.
Yeah, there was a load of questions here that most of them were answered. Do you have anything else to share from your side, Jason, or anything from the team that perhaps a feedback or a question that stood out and we want to make sure to verbalize it because we are here at the top of the hour already? So
yeah, sure. I was stuck on mute. Sorry about that. I think we've taken care of all the questions, and given that we're out of time, I think we can just jump into the conclusion. So I'd like to thank you, Tom and Stanislav, for being our guests today and for an excellent presentation. And thank you to the rest of the team who helped answer questions. At the same time, I would like to remind the listeners that the best way to ensure you don't miss any future webinars or major announcements is to visit our landing page at aka.ms/securitycommunity. And while there, you'll find easy ways to navigate and find the resources and learning content relevant to our security products and their communities. A good start would be browsing our bite-sized product videos, ninja trainings, recordings of past webinars, GitHub communities, and more. We love to hear your feedback on how we can improve these webinars. Please take a minute submitting your webinar feedback at aka.ms/security webinar feedback. Thank you and see you next time. Goodbye.